Star Wars is so weird, man.
Hi, I'm Winton, and welcome to another Star Wars Hunters character guide. Today we're going to talk about one of the least popular characters in the game, J-3DI. Before we do, I have a confession to make. You see, I used to be a hater too. It's true, once I believed that this droid was stupid and useless, and that his conception story just didn't make any sense. I still believe that last thing, but I'm trying to look past it. I mean, I play the Pokemon video games, so clearly writing isn't that important to me. But I have played many games of Matchup Mix-Up, and whether I wanted to or not, I piloted that droid a lot. And I have learned that J-3DI's kit is not the problem. It's the fact that at lower levels, he might as well literally be a gonk droid. That's a trash can, by the way. And I actually learned how to play him, and kind of well, if I can brag for just a quick second. Like many characters in this game, our droid boy suffers from just needing to level up so he can reach the height of his force powers. Sorry, I read that wrong. I meant faux powers, which is French for not real, as in J-3DI literally does not have access to the Force. Because again, he's not a real Jedi.
You are not a Jedi.
Sprocket just typed some code into his motherboard that made him think he is. Can we talk about that for a second, by the way? I swear I'm getting to the J-3DI kit in a minute. I just have to talk about this. Sprocket, who is, by the way, a child, decided to build a droid for the sole purpose of competing in the arena with him. While doing so, Sprocket thought, wouldn't it be cool if this droid thought it was a Jedi? A thing that canonically a droid could never be. And then he gave him a lightsaber, and one ability that a real Force user might have in order to further trick him into believing that he is a Jedi. Who does that? Okay, I'm done having an existential crisis over a fictional robot made by a fictional squid boy, I swear. Let's get into the details, shall we? J3, or Jedi as some people will literally just call him, is the 7th character you unlock in the game, and the 2nd melee-only character. Despite this, there is a quest in his mastery line about getting eliminations using critical hits, something you can't do with melee weapons. We'll come back to that later, though. First, we're gonna look at the lightsaber, which is blue, so you know he's a good guy, or whatever. This is a very simple main weapon. Compared to Graz, the other melee character you would have unlocked at this point, his attack is about the same speed, but it does 45 damage instead of 40. This extra 5 points of damage seems pretty insignificant, but it actually means that you can take out any character with 250 health or more in one less hit than Graz would be able to. While it would take the Wookiee about 7 hits to take out Arantal, it only takes the droid about 6. This isn't huge, but it's always nice to shave a second off your elimination time. The lightsaber has less range, so it doesn't cover the screen like Graz's clubs do, but it can do something unique to this game's lightsaber wielders: block and deflect. Deflecting Stance is less of an ability and more of a stance? Yeah, I guess that's why they named it that, huh? This right here is where a lot of nuance for this droid comes in, and in my opinion, it's one of the worst explained things in the game. Real quick, I'm gonna try not to compare to Reeve too much, as she is an extremely different character from J-3DI, but they do both share this ability. The thing is, our droid is way better than the dark side assassin at blocking and deflecting, even if this isn't immediately visually evident. He starts with 200 block stamina, and then as he levels up, can increase it to 230. Does that mean that he can deflect 200 damage back at his attacker? You better believe it doesn't. But again, we'll come back to that. First off, you can only deflect energy-based ranged weapons. Why didn't I just say lasers? Because you can also deflect Utuni's Pulse Blaster, but not his Arc Caster. Get ready for this to become way more confusing. J3 can block melee attacks, like Graz's clubs or Sentinel's barrel slam. This means that as long as he still has stamina, he won't take damage from those attacks, but if it has knockback, he will still go flying. Also, you cannot block Graz's charge. J3 can block lightsaber attacks from Reeve, but he can't block the pull or stun effects from her ultimate. You also can't block damage from Skora or Chaos's ultimates, as that damage actually comes from below you as opposed to in front of you. Okay, you know what? This is too complicated. Just look at this chart I made instead. This is a ridiculous looking list, right? It's practically nonsense, but it is part of the reason why J3 is actually better than he looks, provided you can essentially memorize this so that you know when to use the stance. There are, however, a few more details I need to say about Deflecting Stance before we can even move on to the next thing. Let's look at another chart. Deflecting Stance has, at all levels, a 5-second cooldown and a stamina regeneration delay of 3 seconds. This means that once you run out of stamina, you will restore from 0 to maximum between 200 and 230 after 5 seconds, but it will be unusable during that time. If you stop blocking while you still have stamina remaining, after 3 seconds, you will begin to recover 60 stamina per second. This means that after 5 seconds of waiting, you will have restored 120 stamina, regardless of your maximum total. And if you activate it at any point, that 3-second delay resets. Stamina, by the way, is not measured by how much damage you are blocking or deflecting, but rather by 50% of the incoming damage. This means that if you have the base 200 stamina, you could deflect a total of 40 of Sentinel's 10-point laser bullets, or 10 of Graz's 40-point club smashes. I tested and arrived at this number by figuring out that I could deflect the 40 damage lasers shot by the training droids, and I could get about 10 of them before my stamina depleted. When you max out at 230, you will be able to deflect 46 of Sentinel's lasers, or block 12 of Graz's club hits. Does that mean that you could deflect 460 damage back at Sentinel at max level? No, actually, because deflected shots only do half of the incoming damage. Or at least they do at base level. That's where the last piece of this comes in. You see, at Hunter level 6, Jedi gains a bonus effect that makes deflected damage increase by 20%. Move up to Hunter level 17, and you can increase that 20 to 30%. An incoming laser from an enemy does so much damage, and then you reflect it back at 50% of the input. Then you increase that output by 20 to 30% of itself, depending on your level. Fun fact, if you can line the deflecting reticle up with your enemy's head, you can actually deal critical damage, which is how you would accomplish that mission I was talking about earlier. This essentially makes the equation x times 0.5 equals y times 1.2 or 1.3 equals z. If you line up the headshot, Z then multiplies by 2, giving you your critical hit damage. Want some examples? We're gonna assume you're at max level for these. Sentinel does 10 damage. You reflect 5, which at max level increases by 1.3 to 7 points. Then when you line up the headshot, you're actually returning 14 damage. Kind of cool, right? Let's look at another example, with more damage and more math involved. Zaina does 30 damage by default, but with the dodge roll boost, she adds 15%, meaning that damage increases to 35. You deflect a rounded 18 back, which increases to a rounded 23, which then inflicts a 46-point headshot. Isn't that a little bit insane? Isn't it wild that I had to use algebra to teach you how to play a Star Wars video game? Okay, is everyone's head spinning yet? Great, because we've literally only talked about one of his abilities so far. The thing is, I can't even talk about his second active ability yet because I have to explain the other reason that J3 is so hard to kill. his passive. You see, not to take a jab at Sprocket or anything, but Jedi is falling apart. I mean that literally, as in pieces of him are constantly falling off of his body. However, much like a Bionicle, he can just pick those pieces back up, reattach them, and heal his own health. Yes, spare parts is the real reason why this droid is so hard to eliminate sometimes. Since this is a passive ability, it will just activate as soon as he hits a certain damage threshold, and all you need to do to heal him is walk over that glowing green chunk of electronics on the ground. At base level, he'll drop one of these every time he takes an accumulated 60 damage, and picking one up will heal him for 30 points of health. This is a very solid 50% health regain ratio. Max this out, however, and you'll be restoring 40 HP every time you take 50 damage. This means you'll be restoring HP almost as fast as you lose it. That's it for spare parts. Very simple, right? Short and sweet, not much to add about these gizmos. Which is why we can now go into J-3DI's other active ability. And you better believe this one is very specific and has a bunch of weird use cases.
Yay.
They call this one Faux Pull, just to rub it in a little bit more that he's not a real Jedi. Sorry for yelling. Mr. Inspector here yells, "Go, go, Gadget Arms!" and shoots his extendable hand all the way over to where you are before pulling you all the way back to where he is, so he can get a couple free whacks in. It inflicts damage when he grabs you, which makes sense because I would assume it would hurt to get hit by a robot hand with enough force in it to drag a human being 35 feet, and then when you reach him, you are stunned for 1.3 seconds. That part is pretty simple, right? Well, it's the other effects that start to really pile up here. See, they call this the anti-ultimate ability, and whoever they are, they're right. Hitting enemies who are mid-ultimate activation with the pull can not only deactivate the ultimate, but also fully drain the enemy's ultimate bar anyway. This happens to a bunch of characters, but it can be kind of specific when it happens to who. Imara, for example, can be stopped at any point, but you should use it when the missiles aren't firing at you, or else you will be dead before your hand hits her. You could stop Graz as well, as long as he hasn't thrown the boulder yet. Reeve can be stopped as well, provided you can hit her during the early part of the animation before the stun has been inflicted. Even Sentinel's ultimate can be stopped this way, as long as you grab him while the fist is pumping before the troopers have actually flown in. Most ultimates can't be stopped though, like slingshots or Arantals. You would think that Skora could be stopped, but even if the grab kills her, the cocktail still falls out of her lifeless hands and breaks open on the floor. The main use for this is to get people closer so that you can hit them with your limited range lightsaber, or to interrupt them during their ultimates or some specific abilities. But it works in a couple other situations as well. See, the pull can grab Sentinel even if he has his shield active, and it will supersede Char's tether, so you can pull him when he thinks he's pulling you. The most interesting thing I've found is that it will not stop or pull any enemy using the unstoppable status effect, but it will still deal the impact damage when the grab hits. Now, we gotta talk about the last piece of this, which is why I had to explain the spare parts ability first. The very first time you level up, as in literally level 2 with Jedi, you get an ability that causes the pull to drop an extra spare part as long as you get the character all the way over to where you are. This means that you can heal yourself more, even if you haven't hit the damage threshold to get another part. Pretty cool, right? Well, hold on to your hat, because at level 21, it upgrades again, and you actually get to drop 2 free spare parts. At this point, that would be 72 free HP just for completing one grab. Now, real quick, I gotta add, if you get interrupted during the pull and the enemy doesn't make it all the way to you, you will not drop those 2 free bonus parts. The thing is, it's usually not gonna be a big deal unless someone really catches you off guard. Okay, we are finally getting down to it, the last piece of J-3DI's kit. That's right, his ultimate. And it kinda sucks. Not to be a Debbie Downer or whatever, but man, it's just not good. Whirlwind is a move that allows J3 to spin in place from his torso, whirling his lightsaber around wildly. The ultimate's main purpose is to take out a group of enemies when they are bunched up together, and it is just okay at doing that. This is one of many AoE ultimates in the game, and if you're not familiar with that acronym, it just stands for Area of Effect, which just means it happens in a big space, usually a circle. Chaos's is better because it traps people nearby and increases in damage over time. Skora's is better because not only does it heal her team, but it can also be used to cover up a point so you can keep your enemies out of it. Reeves is better because it stuns and pulls enemies. Meanwhile, J3 just kind of spins. I mean, he can walk around, but man, this ultimate is so disappointing. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even use it half the time because it leads to getting eliminated so easily. Even Aron Tal gets to be unstoppable during his ultimate, and Jedi gets nothing. He can't even block during that. And honestly, one of the more frustrating aspects of this is that you would expect it to do 45 damage per hit, you know, because when he swings his lightsaber, it does 45 damage per hit. But for some reason, Whirlwind does 40 damage. Why? Alright, I'm fine. That's J-3DI's kit from end to end. We are going to talk about strategy for a minute though. Boiling it down, the idea with Jedi is to block all of the time, reflect anything that you can reflect, and aim for your enemies' heads when you do so, and then use the Faux Pull to interrupt people when they're doing something that might kill you. In between these things, you want to keep an eye on your spare parts so that you can keep yourself alive the whole time. The higher J3's level is, the easier this will be to do. Now, he shines in Trophy Chase, as his pull will cause your enemies to drop the trophy. Of course, they'll drop it where they get grabbed, not where they get pulled to, but at least they drop it. Squad Brawl is not his ideal game mode, but it can work out fine as long as the other team is not bunched up and attacking all at once. The one piece of advice that I will give for dynamic or power control is that you all need to stop pulling people into the point. I see people doing this all the time, and it's a terrible idea because they start to contest it when you could just be holding it and getting more points on your own. A better thing to do is to find the ideal distance from the point and grab people and pull them out of it. That way you can slow or stop their point accumulation. The last thing I will say before I end this video is that J-3DI deserves better. For a long time, I've been saying that he deserves to be able to grapple. I mean, he literally has an extendable arm. Let him use it. I even made a Reddit post about it. It doesn't have to be that specifically though. They could just give him a regular speed boost like this comment suggested. Or they could just give him 25 or 50 more health and let him be a tank, which is what he practically is anyway. He could even just activate the arm in the opposite direction and push people away as a way to escape combat in times of need. There are so many possibilities, and I desperately hope that someday he gets the upgrade that he deserves. That's the end. That's all there is, folks. Now, go home. I'm sure you've had enough of me ranting on about this droid, huh? Please remember to like and subscribe, but more importantly than that, share this with people. I would love to keep doing this, and I cannot do it without your support. I also have a Ko-fi account, and you can donate money there if you feel like supporting me a little bit more. I'm thinking about starting a Patreon too, to be honest with you. What do you think? Leave me some comments on not only what you thought about this video, but also the kinds of videos you'd like to see me make in the future, as well as anything you'd be interested in on a potential Patreon page. And that's all from me. I will see you out there, Arena fans. What are you doing? Okay.